We're going to start now and then see if more people join. So hi, and welcome to this online Q&A session with past former AWF Student Grant recipient Jillian Gordon. My name is Maureen, and I am the Communications and Marketing Officer at AWF. Before we dive in, I will take just a couple of minutes to introduce you to our charity, which is the Animal Welfare Foundation, or AWF. And then I'll say a few words about the Student Grant Scheme before passing on to Jillian for a presentation. After Jillian's presentation, which should last about 30 minutes, you will be able to ask all of your burning questions, either by putting them in the chat or by raising your hand and unmuting yourself if you feel comfortable too. Jillian will also ask you to participate in her presentation. So also bear in mind that this online session is recorded, but just so you know, it will only be shared with participants and the people who have registered for the session but couldn't attend. So who is AWF? So the Animal Welfare Foundation is a grant-giving charity that was established in 1983 by the British Veterinary Association, or BVA, for the sole purpose of working to improve animal welfare. Sorry. So although there's lots of charities that you know that focus on preventing animal cruelty and suffering, there are far fewer that promote the study and improvement of their welfare. So AWF's goal is to offer grants to develop practical solutions to animal welfare issues and also lead meaningful advancement in the field. So to reach this goal, we do provide funding to researchers at UK institutions, and we exclusively fund studies that are dedicated to welfare and adhere to the highest ethical and scientific standards. We also support the next generation of animal welfare advocates by offering student research grants, so the Student Grant Scheme, free student talks, and free access to case studies. Finally, our charity is also committed to advancing knowledge on animal welfare through our annual discussion forum, which is a platform for debates and conversation on key animal welfare questions. So just a little bit of promotion, but this year it will be on the 19th of May. It will be in London, and we will discuss topics like animal behavior as a welfare indicator, the economics of farm animal welfare, extreme conformation in companion animals, and fish welfare, among other topics. And we do offer concession for students to attend. So if you're interested, just head over our website to know more and book your tickets. But you're all here because of our Student Grant Scheme. So the Student Grant Scheme is a fully funded opportunity to explore an idea further through research and deepen your knowledge of animal welfare. It also helps strengthen the evidence base on key animal welfare issues and challenges. But what I think is really exciting about this opportunity is that these projects, they empower the students like you to make future decision, to base your future decision on solid evidence. And also, as you grow in your careers, your influence extends to your colleagues, the workplace, and also, most importantly, all the animals that you will care for. So these grants means that we can help build a stronger pool of future animal welfare scientists and professionals, people committed to improving the welfare and lives of managed animals in the UK, like Jillian. So Jillian received an AWF grant in 2019, and she will tell you all about her project and her experience, as well as where it led her. So without further ado, thank you, Jillian, and thank you again for your time. And I'll stop there, and it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, it's lovely to meet you all. I'm Jillian Gordon. So I'm going to tell you about my journey and how my journey with AWF actually led me to setting up my own company, Ovation Agriculture. There is some videos throughout this that are maybe a little bit hard to watch, so I apologise in advance, but as animal welfare researchers, we are all familiar with the situation when welfare doesn't go our way. So we need to be comfortable in being able to discuss those things as well. So I'll give you a little bit of a warning before I play the video, and you can look away if you so wish. But yeah, so I need to press the right button. So today's talk is going to be all about what you can do as a researcher and what the opportunities are going to lie. We're going to start off with a little bit of an introduction over who I am and why I'm even here talking to you guys today. Talk about why we bother with research, why it's important. I'll introduce the Ovation Agriculture Company, and I'll then talk about through starting in research, selecting an idea, selecting a team to support you, and then you have time to ask me any and every question you want. It can be about my business, it can be about how I got to where I am in my career, it can be about anything, just a general question. I'm not bothered, you can ask anything, okay? So it's an open forum. So who I am. I am what my family and friends call a chronic student. So I started my education in 2011 and I technically haven't finished yet. So I started doing a HNC in bioscience with the Scottish Rural College, or Scottish Agricultural College as it was then. And then I moved to do an HND in applied bioscience and then ended up doing a degree in applied animal science. When I'd done that, I decided I wasn't done yet, and I decided to do a master's in international animal welfare ethics and law part-time with the University of Edinburgh. So that took me 5 years to complete because it was self-funded as well, which is quite a costly thing to do. So I worked and did that, and then I decided I'm not quite done yet, so I signed up to do a master's by research in human geography, and then I moved to do my PhD, which I have just submitted, which was looking at breeding decisions of dairy beef cattle. So I've been a student for 13 years, coming on to the 14th year now. Hopefully that's going to be it for me, but I absolutely love education. And that's what led me to become a lecturer in agriculture. And this is really rich coming from somebody that used to absolutely hate high school and hated the first early stages of education. So it's something you can learn to love and learn to have a passion about. But yeah, now I'm a lecturer in agriculture and I work at Scottish Rural College up in Ethelsmacken at our Oak Ridge campus in Scotland. I'm also a horse rider, and this is my horse Nero. I have included a few pictures of him to make it aware that I don't just only exclusively think about cows, because you might get that vibe from this presentation, that I do know other animals exist. I am an ex-rugby player. I don't play anymore due to injuries, but I am a very passionate cow enthusiast. I'm not from a farming background. A few members of my family farm, but I am not from a farming background myself. It's something that I came into through my education. And I've really enjoyed being with it and taking it from there. And that's where my passion for cows came from. So we're all here because we're familiar with research and we're quite maybe interested in doing something about animal welfare research, which is great. But we do research for a load of different reasons. For a big conglomerate company, it can be to make more money, to find a way to make more money. For a small an NGO, it could be to make a real difference. There's also the opportunity where every aspect of research, the main aim of it is to learn something new or to understand something that's already going on. Before I continued in the talk, I was wondering if you could pop into the meeting chat or put your hands up and speak if you so wish over what are you interested in researching? Are you interested in researching large animals, small animals? Are you interested in looking at animal health and welfare? Are you looking at welfare? Anything, just so I can get an idea. I can see Zaz is already communicating. You can see little dots typing away. If you don't have an idea just now, that's fine. It's just to give me an idea. Oh, bees. Bees, wonderful. Very needed area of research. We've got Jay Thomas just typing away just now. Yeah, so bees, wonderful. That's quite a niche thing. Animal health and welfare in smallies. Captive animal welfare and health. Okay, so let's put it this area. Farmed animal behaviour. Oh my goodness. There's loads of them coming through now. So stress felt by patients in vet clinics. Oh, interesting. That'll be a really good one. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got quite a range already. So we've got some looking at sort of specific animals, some looking at a range of animals, so captive animals. When you say captive animals, are you talking livestock or are we talking exotics? It'd be quite nice to know. exotics and zoo collections, etc. Okay, yeah. So we've got a good range of all the different types of animals. Thank you for sharing. But yeah, so for me, I was looking at cattle, and my why was I was doing my master's project at the time. I was involved in looking at some research. I'm passionate. I think all animals deserve the most outstanding level of care. If we are responsible for looking after them, we need to make sure that we're looking after them in every way that we can. And 99% of the population agrees with this. So I'm quite comfortable with that. But my why was that I didn't understand why nothing was getting done about bovine dental health. When I'd done my master's project, we'd identified that this was a problem. And at the time, I worked on multiple different farms, and I found out that nobody was doing anything about it. Nobody was interested about it. Nobody was interested about it academically. Nobody was interested about it in industry. There was nobody seeming to do anything about this problem. And that really got to me. And I'm not going to say that I made this decision overnight to do something about it. But once I'd done my project and AWF had helped me do it, I realized that I couldn't take it anywhere else. And that's why I decided to set up my own company. It's quite a rare situation to be in, but it certainly might exist. So it doesn't always have to be something that you exclusively do through academia. This can be something that you decide to continue on doing afterwards. But my why was because of my research project that I did with AWF. I discovered that we had a hidden epidemic in the cattle industry. We had 100% of the animals that I looked at had some form of dental disease. Some of them were horrendously painful, obviously, as the video was going to show. But it was overlooked. Nobody really knew what to do. We thought, okay, well, they've obviously got a big swelling here. They're maybe in a bit of pain. What we'll do is we'll just give them some antibiotics and some anti-inflammatories. Take it from there and see what happens. To me, that's just not good enough. We need to get to the root cause. We need to stop this from happening. So looking at it, dental health, it can easily lead to pain, negative welfare impacts, production losses, and unnecessary antibiotic use. All of those things are really important as we try to become a more sustainable production system. We also have the cost. For a lot of farmers, you have to go down to the cost. They are businesses, after all. You need to show what matters cost-wise. So for the cost for dental health, it's unquantifiable. We have absolutely no idea. So we need to do more research to understand what this cost is. There's also a massive gap in the sector because there's nobody doing it, there's nobody researching it, there was no tools available for us to treat dental disease or to prevent dental disease. Because through my master's project and my project with AWF, I was able to actually be involved with the veterinary education team and see how they were teaching dental health for bovine animals. And they were teaching it in about 2-hour class, and that's all that they got because there was no knowledge available. So it was something that we really needed to develop. Now, I've got this video here. This is the video where I said, if you are a bit squeamish or you don't like seeing animals in pain, please do look away. But I would like to show you this. So this cow here, she was on one of the farms that we looked at, and we actually ended up following her to slaughter and taking her head from the slaughterhouse and doing a post-mortem and CT scan on it. All part of my AWF project that was funded and only made possible because of this charity. So we looked at her and we noticed that when she's chewing, she has this bloody sort of brown discharge coming from one nostril. And if you look at her, she's sort of locking her jaw when she chews, when she's ruminating. You can see here, she's obviously not very happy, okay? She's got sort of sunken in eyes. She's looking a bit sad. She's looking a bit in pain. And we were very confused over why. The farmer for this herd had monitored everything with her. She was only a young animal. She was only 4. She seemed to be milking absolutely fine. And then one day she started looking a bit funny. She was starting to get bullied a little bit by the other cows, and another cow is politely coming over to demonstrate what can happen in herd animals if somebody's sick. But her pedometer and her other behavioural monitors, they were all showing everything to be okay. So they didn't really know. They tried to get her to become pregnant again and failed. So she was classified as being barren. And the only sign was she had this sort of discharge and this sort of weird chewing behaviour, which only happens sometimes. So we took it from there and we thought, right, you're due to be culled because you're barren. Let's see what the underlying problem is. And we found multiple problems, okay? She had an abscess so big in her upper jaw that it actually eroded all of her bone and was now touching with the brain barrier, which means she was becoming completely septic. And that's why she had gone barren. She was not able to be healthy enough to produce that natural cycle that the cows normally have. All of this came from an impaction that had happened due to an uneven tooth surface. So in my hand in the picture, you can see a equid skull. This is a plastic skull. This isn't a real skull. And unfortunately, for a long time, I'm sitting at my kitchen table here. I normally have a cow skull on my kitchen table because I'm that weird. It's in a bag, but and it's cleaned. But unfortunately, it's a way to be used in 3D modeling. So I don't have that to show you just now. But this picture here does just explain it quite well. Cows and equids both have what we call hypsodont teeth. So their teeth are very, very long in the root and they'll continually push through. And it's that surface there that the jaw will sort of do a sort of crossing shape motion where it overlaps and comes at different angles and mushes all their grass and food together. From that, we're able to digest the food a lot better. If they can't do that well, if there's a sharp edge that's caused an impaction of something like that, we then have losses of impacts. So my company and what I set up to do has decided to develop innovative tools, which is called a dental gag or a speculum, which can be fitted to cows and actually open their mouth in a nice, calm and safe way, much more safe for the vet, for the farmer who's doing it, as well as for the animal, and allow us access so we can treat and deal with any dental disease at the source when the animal is still alive. We also have the ability to empower them through new knowledge. We're trying to create training resources for vets and for farmers. And we also have an app where we're allowing farmers and vets to upload loads of data so we can make data-driven decisions. We're not making decisions based on what we think or what we feel. We're trying to make it a very data-driven decision. So have we provided all the treatments that we can? Is there something else we can do? And this is allowing a streamline of data from the vets and from the farmers so that it's a nice, easy flow of information rather than lots of phone calls and lots of emails back and forward. So that's what we're doing to address this problem. The market opportunity for the farmed animal industry is massive. It's a vast market. In the UK alone, we have over 200,000 farms with cows on them and 1.85 million cattle registered. I have to say, whenever we start talking about how we can improve health and welfare of any animal, we get a massive enthusiasm, okay? The world really, really wants it. And that's the same as what we've got from the industry itself, but also from the public. And that allows us a global potential for all of these things. For me, this has offered me to file an IP protection, and I'm more than happy to talk about that later on, which is intellectual property protection, which means nobody else can come and take my ideas and use them as their own. I am able to do this because I have no direct competitor, and that the biggest competitor that I do have is the do nothing attitude. So it's maybe not possible in all of them, but it is something we can talk about later on. So to get here, we've got to go through multiple stages of development, okay? To get to somewhere where you can do something, you need to be basing it on research. You need to be basing it on new knowledge that you have created or knowledge that you've taken and analysed in a new way. It's very important. That allowed me to do my prototype development, my application development, and my research trials. I've been working with a lot of different companies, including the digital dairy chain, to do this, and that's helped me all pull into filing my training programme. I just wanted to highlight, remember I was talking about those long teeth that cows have? You can see them here in this equid skull again. Unfortunately, I don't have a cross-sectional bovine skull yet, but you can see how long they are. Those teeth, there's two sets of teeth. There's the infant teeth and there's the adult teeth, and you can see they'll continually grow through. So when a cow does become very old, say when it comes to maybe late teens, we suspect that all these teeth will have erupted fully and that animal will then not be able to eat. So if they manage to make it to that age, we may have issues with them actually being able to digest food. But it's not so much of a problem. So starting out in research, it sounds quite scary because you don't have no idea where you're going. You don't know what's going to happen. You may hypothesize what your research is going to bring, but we don't know for sure. My one bit of advice is before you start on any research project, make sure it's something that you're passionate about, that you're really interested in, because that makes this a lot easier to do. If you have some sort of passion there, it can be quite nice and encouraging to keep you going, because doing research is quite an exhausting thing. It takes over your life. It takes over every aspect of the way you think about something. So I would think about making sure it's an idea that you're passionate about. And from what we've said in the chat already, there's a whole lot of passion there and a whole load of different priorities and projects that we can be looking at. Then think, what tools, what do you need to make this difference? What do you need to do? Are you needing to do a stereotypical research trial where you're going to bring in 20 mice? Or are we looking at monitoring behaviour of animals that are already in situation? What type of thing are we needing to do? Is there some sort of education that you need to develop your skills? All of that. But the good thing with the AWF Student Grant Scheme is that you can do it as part of a university project, or you can do it while you're at university. So it doesn't have to be something that you're going to submit as part of your honours project. This can be an extracurricular thing that you're going to do. So you could be studying electrical engineering and also looking into animal behaviour and welfare. It's possible for you to do that. It's a lot, but it is possible. But the good thing with AWF is they will link up with your university, they will link up and they'll allow you to have a wider budget for you to do your honours project or something like that, or maybe an undergraduate project, a third year project. So you can do it on the uni project, you can do it on your own. Each has their own benefits, okay? You all seem to have your ideas. I think it'd be wise for you at some point, you don't have to do it just now, you can keep listening if you could, to write out a rough 12-month plan over where you would like to see this happening. What's the starting point? What's the ending point? And what do you need to do in between? Okay, you don't have to follow this word for word. It can be something where you, something that you think about and you try to develop over time. It can be something where you look back in 5 months' time and go, gosh, I was totally wrong on that. I should have thought about it in this aspect, because that's the great thing with doing these projects. There's no set boundaries. It will shift. Your idea of what you're looking at may shift. You're not going to have to report on these exact findings. You get to report on what you found, and that's amazing. So yeah, finding your starting point of research. We all have to start a journey somewhere. Whenever we start any journey, when it comes to my horse Nero, he likes to make this face every single time. And I think it's a good thing to try and always be excited about the journey that you're going to be starting on, because it puts you in an enthusiastic mindset as we go forward. For me, my 12-month plan as it stands is pretty simple, and it's something that I've been seeing as my 12-month plan for more than 12 months now, because the initial launching the tool is much harder to do than I thought. It takes many more iterations of research. So we're still on this 12-month plan. We're still not quite going with it. But the first stage for me was to launch the tools and initial training courses, because as I am trying to set up my own business, I need to get funding in so I can develop it. I then wanted to improve the data and the impact on animal welfare. So I want to conduct a larger research study, something that's going to involve hundreds of animals, where we look at the animals' health and welfare, and we look at the benefits we can get through using my tools and my training programs and my data-driven management decisions to try and improve them. So we're looking to try and quantify the impact of dental disease on cattle health and welfare, to quantify the production costs so we can see what an impact it's having on the farm businesses, and to also consider things such as feed conversion efficiencies and methane emission associations. Because if we're having a better digestive process with digestion starting in the mouths, we can actually think about them being more efficient in the way that they convert their feed into either beef or into milk. A lot of my research is going to be based on dairy cows just now, and that is because there's more monitoring in the dairy cows, and the farmers are more likely and the veterinarians are more likely to take this treatment on board and do it more often, just because they're in that intensive system and they're more hands-on. Whereas with a beef system, we're not seeing our animals as often, we're not handling them as often, and it's something that we have to consider when we're looking into what is our target group of animals. Because saying one whole, say I'm going to look at cattle, it's a little bit too vague. We need to be quite specific for these initial studies. I'm then also going to start, at the end of my 12 months, I'm going to start to think about expansion. There's cows all over the world. There's dairy cows all over the world. I don't think it's fair that our cows have the highest access to the best of the best, and maybe cows in a different country don't get access to this. I really want to make this product and this knowledge available all over the place so we can improve global cattle health and welfare. So that's the big plan. But to do this, it's really important that you surround yourself with the right team. So that's all the way from the first initial research trials, this initiation of your research idea, and you're thinking, this is what I'm going to do, all the way to whether if you want to commercialize it, if you want to do what I've done and set up your own business, you need to have a team around you for that. So my team is quite complicated in the sense of, on paper, it's just me just now. So I am the founder, I'm the CEO, I'm the financial director, I'm all of that just now because we are just very small. We're pre-trading still, we're not making any money. I've got no money to entice other people onto the team. But what I do have is I have guidance from financial partners, such as my financial advisor, which is my fiance. And I've got an experienced board of advisors, so people that I meet with regularly to talk about things. So that includes Sheila Vose, who's the Chief Research Officer, and it also includes Kate Richards, who was the President of the British Cattle Vets Association. I then have got to think about it in an economic sense, where I need business advisors. So that's the likes of Mike Smith, Teresa Shutter, and Christina Starko, who all help me to find the right business moves and where do I make the next move there. So you've got to compartmentalize things, and you've got to think about your limitations all the time. I am not somebody who's involved in marketing. I have no marketing brains around me, so I'll need to find somebody with that. When it comes to setting up your team, it's best if we try and do it in a way that's going to complement your abilities. So if you're interested in working with somebody who perhaps could act as a supervisor as part of your university, just reach out and ask. They're not going to be offended by that at all. But make sure it's somebody that's going to be able to give you the time, the involvement, who's actually interested in what you want to do. If it's somebody who you'd love to work with, but they're just so busy, perhaps ask them if they could suggest somebody that might be more suitable, that might have a couple of hours every week that they could give to you, and they could help you develop your project and share expertise. The person that you really wanted originally that's really busy, maybe they could take a back seat and it's somebody you could speak to once a month and maybe think more about the designing of the project. Maybe they could be a little bit more involved there and somebody else takes over. You've got to make sure that you're picking a supervisor who is interested in your project. If you're considering, after doing this AWF student research trial, is it something I'd like to commercialise? Is this something where I think if I take it out of the research, educational, academic sphere, I might be able to make it bigger, make it work more? Because that's why I went out of academia, is because I realised that if I wanted to make a change, make a positive action, I'm going to have to do it myself. And it might be you come up with a similar approach, and that's very well and good. So is it somebody that's going to support that transition? Because that's a very difficult thing to do, is to go from an academic to an entrepreneur. We think very differently. So it has to be somebody that's going to support you there. I think we often can get a bit drummed down to say, but they're an expert in my field, I must have this supervisor, they're the best. That's really good. They definitely need to have a knowledge of your field. But sometimes getting somebody who's got a background in something else can bring a new layer of understanding to your work. You can act as the expert in your field, because by the end of the project, you're going to be the expert in your field. You can act as somebody who knows that field really well, and they can bring a whole new level of information on board of that, which can really help develop the way you think. One bit of advice I got at the start of my educational journey was, you don't have to like your supervisors. That's not important. You must respect each other, and that respect must go both ways. So as much as it could be somebody where you're not naturally drawn to them, you're not going to sit down and have cups of coffee with them regularly, that is okay. Most of the time we don't have this problem. But if you find somebody that you maybe struggle with on a social level, that is okay, because you're not being friends with them on a social level. This is an academic journey. This is somebody who's going to be able to pull you up and say, no, I believe what you're doing is incorrect, you should do it this way. And you're going to respect that decision and work together well. It can be quite challenging, and you might have to say, thank you very much for your offer, but no, I'm going to go with this person a few times until you find the right fit. Or you might be lucky enough where you don't have to do that. It's something to take a lot of time to consider. I often have to say this, but finding somebody else separate from your direct supervisory line that's going to be able to encourage you on the days where you just feel totally fed up and you're like, if I have to look at another bee or another sheep or another exotic animal, I'm going to lose my mind, because there will be days like that when you've spent the whole life working at data. Certainly I found that. I was like, if I have to look at any more teeth, I'm gonna go crazy. But finding somebody who's excited to check in with you and enthusiastic about your project is really helpful. For me, starting out, a lot of that came from the AWF team. The team that you'll meet today and the team that you'll meet when you do your applications, they have boundless enthusiasm for animal welfare, and they're really interested to hear what you're saying, to hear what you're doing, to check in, and be writing maybe a blog piece for them or talking to some future students. They're really excited about how they can help and about checking in with you. So it's quite nice, because with this project, not only do you get the funding, but you also get support through having those members. They support you in loads of different ways. I'll be here all day, but they're very, very enthusiastic. So it's a very friendly team to get involved with for your first big research project. It's really quite helpful. So your task from me, I know it might sound really silly, but if you could, you can either take a photo of this or jot down what we're saying. If you've got an idea, and you all seem to have an idea, there's no harm in applying for this project. Your supervisors at university, if you've already got them, are going to love the initiative, because all they do is researchers. I mean, half your job as a researcher is applying for projects. So they're going to love that you've taken time to do that. So have a moment and sit down and try and get your thoughts together about it. So naming your research idea. We've already named them briefly. So farm animals, behaviour and positive welfare indicators. That's a nice idea. That's a nice named idea. So having that name can bring a little bit more life to it. So write it down. Set yourself out a plan. So what are you going to want to do to analyse this? If I am looking at captive animal welfare and health, what are the welfare indicators that I need to be thinking about? Do I need to be viewing those animals myself, or do I need to be looking at CCTV of those animals because perhaps I don't want to disturb them? Have a think about that. The next one is thinking about your team. So who's going to be involved with this? Have I got colleagues that maybe are going to support me? They could be fellow students. Or am I looking for support from a member of staff of the institution? Or am I looking for support from somebody external? Am I wanting to do a project with Edinburgh Zoo? So maybe I'll reach out to Edinburgh Zoo and say, is there somebody who'd be interested in helping me with this project? I'm thinking about applying to the AWF Student Grant Scheme, so I'll have the funding to do that. Then what you're going to want to do is, are you wanting to do this with your university, or are you wanting to do this while you're at university? Different things each have their strengths. If you're doing it while you're at university, you're increasing your workload, but you're doing it independently, and that can be fun in itself. If you're doing it with your university, which I believe is the most common way to do it, you can do it as a way to already sort of fill in a project that's existing, and that can be good fun, and you get the support of the university as well. Okay. I should also say, for those that do feel more entrepreneurial, every single business in the UK, in university in the UK, has an entrepreneurial school. So if you're at Edinburgh Uni, it's called Edinburgh Innovations. It just takes a quick Google and you'll find another team there that will help you turn your research into a business. So that's also available. Funding to make it happen. Applying to this grant gives you the funding to make it happen. It's really an annoying thing, but funding makes the world go round. We all need money to make these things happen, be that to buy kit that you need, to support your fees or your time for getting somebody else involved, to travel to location, to get access to these animals. Everything costs money. So we need to be able to apply to things like the AWF Student Grant to support that, okay? So funding to make it happen can be really helpful. Support to help share your idea. AWF can help with that. They get really, really amazing involvement from the British Veterinary Association. So you can help share your idea via social media or by doing blog posts for them or podcasts for them or whatever it is, sharing things, saying, look what I did, and they can put it onto their Instagram, on their Twitter, onto an email. They love to do that. I also think working with the likes of AWF and doing a sort of formalized scheme where there's an end date in place, where you have to submit a timeline, this is when I'm going to finish, it can give you accountability. It keeps you on track. A lot of people who have a lot of passion for things can get sort of onto a little rabbit hole, and 6 months later you appear out of it and you're like, oh well, I've learned an awful lot about eye movements, but actually I was meant to be learning about bees, so I need to go back over here and do it. But having this sort of accountability through having check-in points with a supervisor or with AWF themselves, it's quite useful because it helps keep your mind focused. What's the task at hand? I also have to say, doing an AWF student grant, if you're interested in becoming a researcher, it's a wonderful place to start because it lets you test the water of whether you really like this or not. You're in charge of your own project. You have provided the funding for that. You can make it happen. It's the mini scale of what it's like to be a full-blown researcher, which is a really exciting opportunity to get early on in your career. So it's a wonderful starting out point. Okay. So last but not least, I've got my contact details there. I'll just turn the sound off, sorry. This was taken in a milking parlour, but it's a nice way to end. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat or put your hand up. I've also included my contact details there below if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask me directly or later on in the day. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Jillian. That was super interesting and helpful, and I hope everyone, I'm sure everyone did find it very helpful as well. I just also wanted to say that, yes, we're here to support you at AWF. And also, don't worry if your ID for your research is not completely, tied in together, because we have an excellent grant committee who will look at your project, will give you lots of feedback and guidance on it as well. So don't feel like it has to be the project has to be completely done by the time you apply. So if you have a good idea and you have a supervisor, I would encourage you to apply as well, because you never know. So if you have any question, pop them in the chat. And in the meantime, we had two come through previously. So I'm just going to ask you, Jillian. So yes, someone said, what if you don't have an idea for a project? Can you just approach the researchers, lecturers to help you with that idea, developing that idea? What do you think?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I love that idea. I love when my students come to me and they say, oh, I've got this rough idea. I really am interested in working with sheep. What are some of the areas that you've found? We're there to help. More than often than not, that you'll find your lecturer will have about 12 different ideas that they've got buzzing around their head that somebody's mentioned to them at some point and they want to pick up. So yeah, absolutely. That can also help, doing it that way can really help draw out enthusiasm and engagement from your supervisors earlier on, where they might be a little bit more inclined to help you throughout the entire process. Be that giving you feedback on an AWF application, things like that. And also in their head, they're going to be thinking, what's next? Where can we take this next? Can we apply to a huge grant and do a huge research project depending on the results of this AWF project? Maybe. So it's a potential, yeah, for sure. Just reach out and ask.
Great, thank you. And then there was another question about, is there a particular time in your course you would recommend carrying out project research?
Oh, yeah, okay. So I think any time in the course has its benefits for sure. But when we're talking about research, it's best to understand maybe the regulations around the research that you're looking at first. So probably if you're doing a standard, so Scottish, so I always think of a degree as being 4 years, but I know in England it's just 3. But I'd probably wait till later on. So after your second year, you tend to have a little bit more of an understanding about research methodologies how you can do things. Maybe if we're thinking about doing animal research, there's ways we can conduct it, the implications that it might have. But then, if you're incredibly enthusiastic and early on in your career, there is nothing wrong with starting early. Just make sure that you've got a supervisor that's willing to support you from an earlier stage. So that might be encouraging you to learn about different research approaches before you go and do the task, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Great, thank you so much. And I also wanted just to say, especially for the person who would like to research animal health and welfare in small animals, AWF is only focused on welfare. So we will not fund a research project that is based on health only. So just bear in mind when you put your application in. But again, as I say, we have a grant committee that will help you and give you advice and feedback on your application. But just so you know that it's welfare focused and welfare only. So we have a few we have a couple in the chat. So what do you think the committee is looking for from the application? So apart from welfare focused, obviously, what do you think, Jillian?
In the application, I mean, I'm not part of the committee, so this is more of my personal opinion and from my experience. I think they're looking to see what type of difference your research is going to make. And that can be a difference to the production systems or a difference into the availability of knowledge that we have around it. So what are you giving back? What are we achieving from it? What's your goal? I think making that quite clear, so saying statements like, from this research, we hope to provide new knowledge and understanding on the ways that bees communicate, or in the ways that turkeys show welfare indicators. It can be things like that. It can be quite small and quite targeted, and that's okay, because the best research has a clear answer to a question rather than an open-ended answer. So try and think about what's the benefit that you're going to provide to the industry, to the animals, to the sector. It's probably a good thing to include. But yeah, I should say that the committee, in my application, I was very lucky. I got help from a supervisor to fill out the application. But yet still, the committee came back to me and said, really good idea, let's change this, let's change that, let's make this more clear, and came back to me on it. And it's really helpful. So don't be scared. You're going to get that feedback, and it's going to really help you develop it. These are people who are experts at what they do. They have done this for years and years and years. They know what they're talking about. So allow them to help guide you. But having a clear idea over what you want to achieve is a good place to start.
Yes, absolutely. And I might add as well that the grant committee is really looking is making sure that you will get the most out of this project as well by, deepening your knowledge and understanding of animal welfare. So that's the main goal as well, for you to get that experience and that knowledge to take into your future career or academia. So that's also, I know what they're looking at, if that project will help you know more about animal welfare. So don't worry too much about, like Jillian was saying, don't worry too much about it. Just put your application, and we're here to help you and guide you and give you feedback. I mean, not me personally, but you know what I mean.
The team.
The other question is, how do I find out how much funding my research needs? And also thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much. So this is a bit of a tricky question, because ultimately we're thinking about a future scope. It's very hard because you're not going to be thinking about, okay, well, I need to get quotes from people over how much they're going to charge me. I think the best place to start is to speak to somebody in your institution that's doing a similar type of work. So if you are coming from a agricultural background, there'll be somebody in the team who is familiar with doing research on that type of animal. And they can help you break it down over what the costs might be and what you need to budget for them. Every single piece of research is different. If you're working with commercial aspects, it can be quite expensive as well. And for experience for me, my most expensive thing that I did was CT scan cows' heads, and there were 3 of them, and I think that cost me about £3,000 or something quite ridiculous, a lot more than what you'd think. And then I also had to buy the dead animal heads off the abattoir. Again, you know, and that was £50 each. So there's a few things that are sort of hidden expenses that you might need to think about. But if you clearly go to somebody with what you want to do, so what's your tools that you need, what are the resources that you need, and talk about it that way. You can also do things, you know, if you're needing to budget for your time, that, you know, your time as a researcher is important. So you can put that in there as well. And go to have a conversation with somebody who works in your field and say, what would you roughly expect? AWF are not going to get upset if you are not bang on with your targets. You know, they don't have to be to the penny accurate. They just have to be your best idea. So don't worry too much about it, but just have that little conversation. They'll be able to rattle some numbers off the top of their head, and you can then design your project around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do add to that sometimes, you know, you have to put a budget in, but sometimes it's not completely, you know, it's a rough idea. And then again, our grants committee can direct you and can assess whether it's a bit too much for what you're looking to do, or it maybe is not enough. So we're also here to help you with that. So again, the budget doesn't have to be to the penny. It can be like a rough idea of how much you're going to spend.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I think that's it. I don't have any more questions in the chat. So maybe we'll be able to finish early. Yes, so if you do have any questions, like, it doesn't have to be now, you're more than welcome to send it to Jillian, because you have her email address, or you can also send it to AWF. My colleague will put the address in oh, there is a Q&A. Yeah. All right. Oh, it's from Pete. Okay. Hi, Jillian. A great talk. Can't get to the chat to work. How did you find AWF as a potential funder? So how did you find us?
How did I find you? So I actually found you because I was working at doing research with the vet school at the time, and somebody had put up a poster on a notice board advertising the student grants team and the application process. It was like a poster with how they did it, and then this is the website to go to find the form to do it yourself. So I found it that way. And then I talked with my supervisors, and they recommended it as well. So yeah, old-fashioned via poster.
Well, that's great to know.
But yeah, no, it was a great experience. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's it. But as I was saying, yes, if you have any question, don't hesitate to send them to Jillian or to us. And there's people saying thank you, Jillian. And yes, thank you so much for your time and for this excellent presentation. And we hope to receive all of your applications soon, and see what projects we can fund, and what positive difference we can make to animal welfare, just like Jillian is doing every day. So no, thank you again so much. And yes, stay in touch, and I will see some of you soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you, Jillian. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.